Hey folks, Shane here. I just want to let you all know, a little disclaimer here in the beginning, that this podcast episode goes over some heavier topics than normal. We go over politics and religion at the beginning, which is kind of breaking my own rules here. But later on, we actually get into some very serious topics, things that I think need to be talked about. But I want to give you a forewarning. If this is not something you're comfortable with, there are going to be timestamps that you can skip to not have to deal with that stuff. Or if it is something that is useful information for you, there's also links and things that are going to be in the description of the video. So please pay attention to that. And without further ado, here's the episode. Well, welcome everybody to Podcasts and Players. It's been a hot minute. I've been a busy boy. Been busy. And unfortunately I haven't had as much time to do the podcast as I would like. But as I said the last episode, I wasn't going to do another podcast until I got this guest on, because our last guest, if you recall, was Tori Draws Stuff. And Tori has a best friend. Yeah, Tori has a best friend who happens to go by the moniker FlyingFoxGirl. FlyingFoxGirl. Welcome to the show.
Hello. No, you can just call me Tori's best friend. That's also very valid.
That is also fine.
Yes.
Now, you are, I didn't do a proper intro of this is a YouTuber who blah, blah, blah. So let's just get into that so people can get to know who you are and what you do. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, actually, I got this job entirely on an accident. I'm actually not a YouTuber, so I actually don't know why you invited me here today. No, I do funny little content. I do little clips from my D&D campaigns, that sort of thing. I've moved more towards TikTok over the years. Just doing a lot better there. I feel like there's a lot more free-flowing interest in the game.
The
still
algorithm
there.
is for sure better on TikTok, yeah.
For sure. So, but my main channel would be Flying Fox Girl on YouTube, and that's where I post my silly little romance videos. That's primarily what I'm known for, so.
Yes, you've been pigeonholed into that subgenre of D&D content.
It's fun. It's quite fun.
But yeah, you've been, how long have you been doing YouTube?
Oh gosh. So that's the funny thing. You know how every YouTube creator page has this creator joined in this year or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you look at my channel, it's technically 2012. It's a long time ago if you look at my channel. I've started doing this though my junior year of high school, so that was 6 years ago now. Almost
it's 2011, by the way. I just checked.
Yeah, 2011. Whoa, you're up to date on the Flying Fox lore. I had it open
because I was if I need to look up a video or something, I need this here, and then I was I'll just see when this is even earlier. Wow.
Yeah. I remember being a little kid, and I was watching my little weird Yu-Gi-Oh AMVs, and I was I want to do that when I grow up.
And Naruto AMVs? Hell
yes.
Sasuke versus Naruto when they're still kids right after the Chunin exams or whatever.
So good.
Do you know how many audience, do you know how many music videos exist of just that fight from the first season of Naruto?
It's incredible. It's honestly
there's about 1,000.
Genre.
There's seriously 1,000 of the same scene music videos of different songs. It's amazing.
My real ones, they were all into the AMVs. You got to be a real one. You got to get back into AMVs.
That harkens back. Listen, old YouTube was nothing but AMVs, vloggers, and like people posting video responses to each other, arguing about like religion and other shit. Like that was
you're so
that
right.
was that was YouTube. Oh, and then just like
interesting time.
Yeah, and then just like, home videos and stuff people wanted to post, but
yeah. I was recently thinking about the fact that there used to be an old genre. I don't know if you remember this, but I definitely do from when I was a kid. There's a genre where people would just put like regular songs, but the image would be like an anime character that they would like white out, and then they would just have like string headphones and always be like I Naruto or like I Yu-Gi-Oh. It was so weird. It was this weird little subgenre, and I was been thinking about that. I'm like, that died. Like, when am I gonna get that energy back? When am I gonna get just the weirdest subgenre?
I mean, there's that Lo-Fi Girl channel. That's kind of like that.
Yeah, I guess that's like the spiritual successor of that in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good point.
It's a little bit of a higher production value, and it's its own thing. It's not ripping off of the properties of like Toei Animation or whatever. But,
yes, exactly.
Love that. Man, old YouTube was fun. So you started your YouTube journey as a viewer, and I'm guessing, I don't know how old you were in 2011. I don't want to guess, but you didn't start making. Baby. You were a wee baby, but you didn't start making the videos until your junior year in high school.
Yes, that is correct. I, of course, made stuff when I was a kid too, but I was way too shy to put it up there. And then I got into D&D my junior year of high school. And from there, I, like most of us, we were like, oh my God, Dingo Doodles is so cool. Wait, we can do that. And then just started drawing my own story times from there. And it kind of just went from there. It was really interesting. But yeah, junior year of high school. It's weird to look back at now because I'm a junior in college. So very, very strange for me.
You'll always be a junior.
I'm always.
Yeah, it's... My junior year in high school, I was an avid like super aggressive like atheist that would debate anyone about religion. I had long hair and real bad acne, and I was insufferable. I was terrible to be around. And
so you were an icon. You were an icon. Is what
I
you're
was.
saying.
I was a mistake.
Whoa.
What I mean is my personality was a mistake that I wish I could go back and take my teenage self and just shake it by the shoulders like, you fucking moron, you look so lame. But
I think it's important when we have those, though. It's good to have phases, because then once you're out of that phase, you get to look back at it and you're like, yeah, that was cringy, but like now I know like maybe not to do that. On top of that, maybe I got into something I really liked at the time. So
I mean, there's aspects of my personality that were kind of similar, but like like I had a lot of the same nerdy interests in like video games. Like that didn't really change.
Yeah.
But like, and I love cartoons. I've always liked cartoons, but like, my attitude was just kind of snobbish, and I was one of those edgelords that was like into shock jock humor. Anything offensive, I was like, if it's for the sake of being offensive, then it's funny. As long as there's no real heart behind it. Like I had this weird little qualifier that you can say offensive things as a joke as long as you don't actually believe them. But it's like, that still does a harm to people who aren't like in on the joke,
Yeah.
So that's mostly the mistake I made. That, and I was a conspiracy theorist, but
no, you were not. Wait, now I need to know what you believed in. I need to hear these. I need to hear these junior year Shane conspiracy theories.
Here's the problem.
Okay.
I was there's a very kind of infamous film called Zeitgeist. Have you heard of it?
Yes. I don't know anything about it. I've just heard it be discussed.
Okay. I don't typically talk about like political or stuff on the show. So I'll just kind of sum this up. For those who know, you know what I'm talking about. For those who don't know,
I'm in the out of loop here. So
this is a conspiracy film trying to blow the lid on the origins of Christianity, basically being ripped from other religions. Also, 9/11 was totally an inside job.
Oh,
and
God.
What was the third part? I think the third part was just like the government sucks. And
this is incredible.
And then they released the second one where they basically hit up that the Federal Reserve, it shouldn't exist, and then some other stuff. And then they were like, at the end, they were like, we need to transition to a resource-based economy, which is a cool idea. It's never going to happen, but it's a cool idea. It might be able to happen on like another planet if we ever like colonize, but not on Earth.
Yeah.
So what does all this mean? Here's the thing. The film itself was trash, as in they did not have good sources. They did not cite good sources. They had sources cited, but a lot of it was super biased, was not like, it was very like clearly pushing this agenda, right? However, despite that, some of the stuff that was a conspiracy theory could actually be true. Because like, as in like the Christianity thing, like, when Christianity started to like pop off after Constantine was like, hey, I guess what, Romans were Christians now. Like, they started pulling from all the different popular pagan religions, like different traditions and stuff like that. So they were actually like, Jesus is said to have died in the springtime. Oh, no. So he was said to have been born in the springtime, but they moved it to December 25th or 22nd or something
to make it more
early
appealable.
on.
Yeah.
Because they had the winter solstice and Yule and all those other like pagan festivals. So they were like, well, let's just chunk it together with that. So there is precedent of them molding the religion to kind of take in these traditions that people already had so that they would easily convert. So that's actually verified. But
yes,
some of the other shit was not. And the 9/11 thing, hey, I wasn't there. I don't know.
You weren't personally there.
What happened with Building 7? That's weird. Anyway.
That's so weird.
Just kind of strange. And then personally, I think it's... No, I'm not going to talk about that. No,
I want to hear. I like learning about these things.
My personal opinion on it, as someone who knows fucking jack shit, is that we had an incentive to take down Saddam for oil because he wasn't following what we wanted him to do.
This is not at all where I expected us to go, but I'm loving it. Continue.
We had an incentive to take him down because he wasn't doing what we wanted him to do after we gave him a slap on the wrist after the Persian Gulf War. He still wasn't fucking doing what we wanted. And I believe that the U.S. military caught wind of plans for terrorist attack and were willfully ignorant of it. I don't think that they set it up. I don't think that they even sponsored it. I think that they just plugged up their ears, closed their eyes, and went la 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 and let it happen so that they could use it as an excuse. I don't know if they understood how big this attack was going to be. But I think let it happen. That seems the most likely to me, because I feel like the U.S. government, it would be a lot easier to just pretend like you didn't know something was going to happen than it would be to actually orchestrate something like that. Like, that seems like a lot more of a difficult thing to pull off. But anyway, done with the conspiracy talk. I was in deep in high school. You
went into the deep end. You just dived back into that. That was amazing.
To the point that I would debate people about like especially religion. I was super into that.
Are we allowed to talk about that? Because I've got some things to say. It's nothing bad.
You know what? Fuck the rules. We can do what we want.
Okay, cool.
But I'll just say this. I've had a lot of debates with fundamentalist Christians because I worked with them while I was like right out of high school. I like worked in a coffee shop owned by evangelists, Baptists. Yeah.
Oh no.
And they would hire like teens from their church, essentially. Some of them who were very much in a bubble, like living like homeschooled bubble. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know.
I got burnt out on debating that stuff after like 2 years, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm comfortably just an atheist, and I don't care what other people believe. Just don't fuck with the laws, and don't force me to do what you do, and we're good.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a good topic to have now because they're thinking about overturning Roe versus Wade, which we won't get into. But religion and law, maybe keep that separate, you know? Maybe. But besides that, I actually, fun fact about the Flying Fox Girl, I went to Catholic school all of my life. My entire life I was in Catholic school until public university. So no longer in that bubble. But I find that super interesting because...
wait. Your account, did your account used to be named Praise Jesus Girl? Was that you?
God, no, I was Girl Defined, actually. It was me and my best friend. Actually, like But
the blood
yeah,
of Christ
no.
211 or something.
Yes, Eucharist lover. But yeah, no, I find that super interesting because we probably would not have been friends, unfortunately, in high school. But
I was Catholic.
You never know.
Like, my family.
Were you really?
Catholic. Yeah. I went to catechism stuff, and I actually had an interest in reading the Old Testament because they had more interesting stories. It wasn't all about Jesus
a lot of
worship.
murder? Yeah, it's a lot of murder.
Yeah, okay. Right in the beginning, it's a lot of murder.
There's a lot of murder.
But, like, I was reading, like, the book of Samuel, and I was like, this is pretty good. Like, this is like a cool mythological story.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of like it. And I remember the nun that was like teaching us. She was so happy that I was like reading the Bible, and I'm just like, I'm bored. We're here talking about Jesus, but there's this guy named Samson who like ripped down a fucking pillars with his strength. Like, that's cool. I don't know about you, but that got my interest.
No, the Old Testament's got a lot of really good stories like that. It's far more interesting from a narrative standpoint, I would say. You're correct in that matter. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, all right. Or I'm sorry, everybody who's had to just sit here while we talked about religion and politics.
Like old men.
I should clarify too. I send guests a little blurb that has
like,
in
no
it,
politics.
hey, let's avoid these topics, and we completely breached that within the first 20 minutes. So we're done.
We're done. Let's move on to a more.
What we'll end this tangent on is we were both embarrassed of ourselves in high school. That's
exactly
normal.
That is the end line of that story. It's that we had a moment. We had moments.
Yeah, and we had to grow as people.
This is true.
But how you don't have to grow is away from your love of TTRPGs.
This is true. You can grow towards it.
When did you learn about Dungeons and Dragons?
Okay, that's the funny thing. So I learned technically my freshman year of high school that it even like existed. I was spending a night at a friend's house, and she was like, "We should make D&D characters. I heard that sounds cool and fun to do." But like we didn't even know how it worked. So we just looked up like
school and like
that's
your
the
Catholic
funny thing.
friend is like, "Hey, let's revive the Satanic Panic."
No. She was Mormon. So it was even worse. It was a Mormon girl and a Catholic girl that were like, "Let's play Dungeons and Dragons." This is my freshman year of high school. I find that so painfully ironic. But it was me and her. We were having a sleepover. We were like, yo, like let's make Dungeons and Dragons characters, but we didn't even know how. We just like Googled like how to make a D&D character, and then we understood none of the rule building. So then we were just like, okay, let's just draw them. And so that was technically my first D&D character.
And this was during like 4th edition and stuff, like.
Yes, this was during like 4th edition, and we had no idea what was going on. We barely knew how to play the game. Like it was barely a game. We just drew characters. We were like, they're in a campaign together now. They're doing things. That's it. I didn't get into real Dungeons and Dragons.
It was a glorified OC, is all it was.
It really was. It was an excuse to draw a funny little elf girl with like a dagger, and that was it. It was a good. It was fun. But speaking of the Satanic Panic, I did have a teacher in my Catholic high school that me and my best friend, who was my DM at the time, and is still my DM and one of my best friends, we played together. So it was a group of Catholic school students that were playing Dungeons and Dragons. We were just like, well, we know this game isn't bad. Like, we're not doing anything wrong. This guy was like straight out of the 80s. So when he found out that we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, he was like, that's Satan worshiping. Like right in the middle of class. And we were like, what? What did you say? What, you want to run that by me one more time? Because we had like a dice with us that day or something. We were just like rolling it around, like showing people like, yeah, like look at this like funny little game. And I think he thought we were like trying to convert people to like Satanism or something. It was insane. It was literally insane.
This was a student or a teacher that said that?
A teacher.
Oh my God. Did he like follow up on it? Did he like...
No, he kind of left us to be. Funny thing about it is that my DM, my sweet DM, who is still my best friend, he was like the most perfect student in high school. Like everyone loved him. He literally became prom king. I'm not joking. And he was like the favorite student of this teacher. And so he was like, okay, fine. Like, if my favorite student wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, fine. Like, maybe it's okay. So, I don't know. Maybe we taught him something about tolerance that day. I have no idea. But he was not quite into the idea of us playing the Satan-worshipping tabletop game at the end of the day.
Yeah, for any who don't know, and it's surprised even me. So some probably don't know about this who are like new to the game, but the 80s saw D&D maligned by all sorts of religious groups because they assumed that it was a way to worship Satan. Yep. So D&D didn't get to have as big of a boom and growth that it wanted to have because there was like an active campaign against it by like uber religious people.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that has since subsided. The panic has faded away. And
all those little Catholic school kids are playing D&D too now. So clearly Satan won.
Yeah, Satan wins again.
Satan wins. He always wins. Oh my gosh.
But yeah. So what about art? We know you start with D&D, but like, have you always been into art, or is that a more recent thing? Like.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I was like an AMV kid. So when I was younger, I was constantly drawing anime and stuff like that. As I got older, I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to do science and math full time. Like, this kind of makes me want to lay down and never get back up. So I'll do art instead. It was interesting because I was a stellar student in high school. I was a 4.0 GPA, like perfect A's in all classes. And then my teacher's like, oh, like what schools are you applying to? And I was just like, SCAD, Cal Arts, like the most stereotypical art schools. And they're like, you sure you don't want to do like chemistry, or you don't want to go to like an Ivy League? And I'm like, I want to draw pictures. So like that was me in high school. And I'm currently in school for graphic design. So still in the art degree, still doing art, love it, have loved it since I was a kid. It's super fun. Just like, honestly, it's a dream come true. Am I gonna get paid well for it in the future? No, absolutely not.
Well, hold on. You're going in for graphic design. You could make a lot of money doing graphic design.
True. You just a lot of advertising.
Yeah, you gotta do advertising. You gotta work for commercials and clients and stuff like that. It's not as fun because you don't get to do your own stuff is the problem. Yeah. But that's where the money's at.
It's true. I think that's what my idea was when I was applying to colleges my senior year, because I was like, I do want to be an artist, but I don't want to actually like starve to death. So I was like, okay, I'll do something where there's like a nice intersection between what I love and having to give up a little bit of my soul to corporations to keep the lights on. So that is the goal of still being able to create, but not perish. I guess that's graphic design for me.
Yeah, I've met several people who've entered like graphic design programs, and I've picked up a few of the tips and tricks that they told me, which helped me like design stuff for the channel and other things. And I hate it. I hate the whole field.
No, that's valid. Me too.
I understand its importance. I understand that there's real, not science behind it, but it's like it's a honed art. Like there's
for sure.
There's a lot of proven theories with that stuff, and I still hate it.
Yep. It's surprisingly a lot of math. I mean, maybe not surprising.
Maybe that's
if you
why I
know.
hate it. Maybe that's what's bugging me. I hate math.
It's a lot of math and a lot of words, and I'm like, I signed up for colors and shapes. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, that's a lot. But in college, I've met a lot of interesting people. One of my professors actually works for Wizards of the Coast, so I got to work with someone who has done art for the books. His art is actually in the player's handbook. He did the Burning Hands illustration that's in the back of the...
Yeah, I remember that like vividly.
Yeah, like it's just cool because once you go to that next step, once you start more actively pursuing something that you enjoy, like you get to meet people who are in that field, and it's kind of cool, like working with these people that you admire, and that's just super interesting to me to like see what he does, because he'll come in and he'll draw his like silly little D&D character, and then he's like, anyways, FFF, do better illustration. I'll see y'all next week. Like, not actually super chill, but that's what goes on in my head.
Yeah, it's It's a very cool. I will say, like, doing art for stuff like Wizards is a kind of a dream of many. It's a very cool thing to do. I think concept art. Yeah, concept art is cool. It's like it's all important. Look, if you're an artist and you're like, I like graphic design, that's cool. Awesome, power to you. I just like, it doesn't excite me. Like, I understand its importance and some stuff can like look better with some graphic design principles sort of like worked into it. But it is like a math. It's like turning art into math, which is why I don't care for it, you know?
I totally feel you. Because again, I went into this field to do art, just art. And I kind of knew there was going to be a sacrifice there of sort of not being able to do as much of what I want. So a lot of us in the graphic design field feel the exact same way that you feel about graphic design, where we're like, this sucks, but it's still doing what we're able and love to do. And it's just surviving off of that talent, off of that skill, really. Yeah. It's
a trade, just like anything else.
It really is. It really is. It's a bunch of little silly students with their thrifted clothes, and we're all just going to a coffee shop to just draw random things, and then going back to class and being like, John, look what I drew. That's it.
That sounds funner than my college experience, at the very least.
What did you go to college for?
Creative writing. And
really?
We would write things, and then we'd have like a round. You'd print off a bunch of copies for the people in your class, and then they'd rip it apart. They'd rip your writing apart and tell you how bad it is and what you should change. Yeah.
No.
That was like a critique circle thing. Yeah. No, that's because they want to like destroy bad habits in writing.
Yeah.
But like the kind of writing that they promote is the kind of writing that's most boring to me. It's like all drama. It's all sort of like serious emo bullshit. Yeah, because that's what all the people in my class wanted to write, was just like super like deep and dark, painful shit. And I'm like, what about fun stuff about a wizard on a journey? Like, I want to read about that. But then that's like too cliche or like unrealistic. And I'm like, but that's fun.
That's funny. That's fun.
Yeah. And like, and I probably sound very bitter. Like, I'm not pretending like I was a great writer by any stretch. Like, a lot of those criticisms hit close to home, and I was like, okay, you write about that though. I could have done that different. But then that just let me believe like, okay, I have a lot of trouble writing like flowery language to describe surroundings. I'm just not going to write novels then. I'm just not suited for it. I don't have the mind for it. Tried poetry, hated it immediately. I'm like, too cryptic. Say what you mean.
Yeah.
Just speak plainly. I hate this. And then I did playwriting, and I actually did really good at that because it's mostly dialogue, and dialogue is more plain. I liked dialogue because it was more natural sounding. I didn't have to be as flowery with the language. You just need to, in order to make dialogue good, it needs to feel real. And in order to feel real, there needs to be conflict, and there needs to be like logic behind it. Like even illogical characters have a logic behind how they're written. It wasn't like, if you're writing for, let's say, an insane person, you aren't insane when you write that typically. Like there's thought put behind what the insane person says.
Yes. Because
the writer is not insane. So like there is an art to dialogue in that sense. And I apparently was very good at that because I got an A+ in my playwriting class. And at the end of the class, they had actual stage actors come in and do script reads of our plays. And everyone had one of their plays, their best play, basically have a script reading. And I was the only person who had 2 read.
Oh.
Because she thought mine were that good. I'm very happy about that. That makes me feel good. But it also, there was 2 things I kind of took away from that. Number 1, I don't like theater, though. So as much as I like writing scripts, I don't want to write for the stage. Like that's just not where my heart is. And 2, there are a lot of other mediums where this type of writing is actually really good. Like, for example, videos and movies and things like that.
Because this is all scripted, as we
this
know.
This is 100% scripted. Yes. It is. You
really got my candor down right. Like you really made it sound natural.
Yeah, even writing that part that you just said right now was like really challenging for me. I had to like think outside the box.
No, I totally understand. I get it. He's a very gifted writer, though. Is this moral of said story? No, I find that super interesting, though, that you're amazing at playwriting and you cannot stand theater. I love that.
It just
sweet irony to it.
Because it's boring.
You're right. You're right.
I'm sorry for all who love theater. I like would write these scripts, and as I'm writing, I'm like, what would be interesting? Like, what's gonna hold my attention? So I had twists, I had reveals, I had pauses like where there was a lot of tension, an implicit meaning behind like two characters like staring or doing something in the same space. Like, there was a lot of stuff where I was like, I know how to make this interesting because this is what would interest me. And it's what plays and theater generally don't do.
No, you're right, though, because I was in theater all of high school. So another reason we wouldn't have been friends. But other than that, like, I was a stage manager. I never did the acting. All I did was like lighting, sound, getting things on stage, keeping things running, like basically the problem solver, the mom of the stage, really. And there were some plays that I just sat through and I was like, this sucks. Like, this is not good. This isn't fun. Yeah. It can be so boring to have to sit in an audience for like 40 minutes at a time and try and understand some dialogue that you just have no idea what they're even talking about. You're just like, what is going on? What is this? So I get that. Theater is hard to write for, and it's even harder to sit through. So
yeah. Of course, I only wrote like shorts, like little mini plays, scenes, if you will. They weren't like, I'm not like an experienced playwright or anything, so I'm not trying to like talk down to people who do write for that type of stuff or talk myself up like I'm equal to them. Like I'm not. But it was the only thing in my creative writing degree that I saw that I had any innate ability that I could cultivate.
But then you took it to YouTube.
And then I applied it to YouTube. That's right. So like I do that with...
How do you feel about scientific writing? Where does that fall?
That is the main reason I don't do science, even though I like science, besides math, is that the writing is so hard to get through.
Yeah.
It is so difficult to just... what's a YouTube channel that impresses me to no end?
Which one?
Overly Sarcastic Productions.
Yeah. They make that so good. So entertaining.
You take two people, a historian, not even a history major, a historian and like a mythology expert, okay? And they both go into source documents that are dry and hard to get through and then present it in a way that's palatable to everybody else. That is such a hard thing to do, especially to do well, which they do very well. It's amazing how well they do. And I commend them for having the patience to fucking do that, because I would never.
And they were part of Bars for Bards. They were part of our Yeah, that was crazy when they showed up. Everyone was like, yeah, red and blue are here. I'm like, well, what? Huh?
They and JoCat. JoCat's like friends with everybody now. Yeah. But back
JoCat
then they were friends with
head.
JoCat, and they came because he invited them.
Speaking of JoCat, I think he's a professor in graphic design or something. I heard it get mentioned very shortly.
A professor?
Like something like that. Like he either majored in it or taught it.
He has a master's. I know he has a master's in it. I guess he could be a professor with a master's, I suppose.
It's always weird to me when we talk to people in our community and they're like, oh, like I'm a lawyer, like I'm a copywriter, I'm a secretary, like all these very normal jobs, and it kind of just hammers in the fact that like D&D for us is very much just a passion. We have like these boring normal life jobs on the side where we're like just average everyday people, and then we come home and we put on our wizarding cap and we're like, I'm going to guess Fireball now. Let me transition over into the dorky side. It's things like that, like JoCat being a master in graphic design. I'm like, no fucking way. No way. It's weird to me every time it comes up. It's just regular things. We're just regular people at the end of the day.
We're just regular people, folks.
Yeah.
You know, some people do this as a full-time career. Some people do this as a hobby. And some people did it once and blew up and were like, okay.
That's it. I'm done.
I'm done.
That's happened a couple of times now. With people that blow up and then just, we're like, where'd they go? I know I'm still subscribed to some of those people. I'm still waiting for the next update. When you guys gonna get it out? Come on. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Hey everyone. This is Shane in the editing room, which is technically the same room that I do recording in. So this is Editor Shane here, giving you a little disclaimer about sort of the direction of the podcast. This has been kind of an interesting podcast at the outset, but we're about to get into some heavier topics. So this would be a content warning for any of those who are a bit sensitive to topics surrounding mental health and suicide. In the description of the video, as I said at the beginning, there are resources for anyone who is struggling with mental health or thoughts of suicide. Please, please, please seek help. Do not stew on that stuff alone. We're going to talk more about it here in the video as well, but I just want to let you know, listener, you right there who's listening to me right now, who's had a tough time, hey, you ain't alone. You're not alone, okay? Reach out. Talk to somebody. It sucks when you isolate yourself. I've been there, and I've seen it happen with people. It's just, it doesn't do anyone any good. It's not going to do you any good. It's important to kind of knock yourself out of those negative loops. Anyway, we're going to talk about it. This is the content warning. If you would like to just skip this, you can skip to the timestamp in the, again, description. It's also on the screen. That'll show you where you should skip if you want to just not go through that. So without further ado, here's our talk about mental health and its importance. I mean, I'm sure some people thought I quit because I spent like a month without uploading anything. And I haven't really done animation work in a bit. For people who don't know, like after I moved, I had a hard couple months with some people who died in my life. Yeah, some real dark stuff. Kind of so not the best. It's you know, it happens to us all. It's just one of those things. And
was this recently?
This was recent, yeah. This was really recent, actually.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, I'm not trying to like, you know, bring down the mood or anything.
No,
but
I get it.
For anyone who like, I don't think anyone did, but on Fridays, I used to. We've moved to Sundays now, but I would play like Pathfinder 2nd Edition on a Twitch channel called The Bard's Playhouse. And we had a player in that game who played Dirge Mountainhoof, who was like this half-orc monk, like druid barbarian dude. Like, it was very cool. It was basically a strength-based monk with like druid powers.
Yeah.
And he was played by a guy who online called himself Just Jake. And Jake was like super cool. He was like the tech guy for the show. Just an all-around sweet dude. And we took a hiatus because some people were moving and it was a natural spot for us to like take a break. And Jake, during the hiatus, kind of quietly withdrew from everyone and then took his life.
That's insane.
Yeah, and it hit us all pretty hard. And then very soon after that, a relative of mine died. And so it's just been tough. Producing content when you're sad is hard, people.
It's the worst.
It's real hard. And I have had some other projects that I had to work on. We did a fundraiser. My girlfriend set up for me so that I could like raise money for a tooth surgery that's happening tomorrow, so I can finally have both my front teeth again.
No, because the last time we tried to schedule this, you were also getting something done, I believe, with your teeth.
This is the last one. This is the last appointment.
And it's always this podcast where we try to schedule it where we're going to talk, and then it's something with the dentist that's insane. I'm like a jinx. My apologies, Shay. My apologies.
No worries. But like, yeah, like that succeeded. But then that also meant that I had to fulfill a bunch of like promises for like little mini commissions for people who donated over $100 more.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I still have a few of these that I need to get through. Plus, I'm also dungeon mastering now, and I'm making all the assets for that. So for anyone who's been wondering, where's the content? That's what's going on with me right now. I've just slowed down because I have a lot on my plate. Yeah,
you need to take it easy. You have a lot going on there. That's a lot. Don't run yourself into the ground.
One thing at a time.
Oh my god!
But if anyone's interested in that campaign, all of the VODs I think are still up on the Bard's Playhouse, so you can actually catch up if you want and watch us from the beginning play this Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. I think it was called the Fall of Plaguestone, and then it's Tales from Shadow Valley is what the name changed to. And we started a new season. We got a new player. New player's great. We're super excited for the new season. We miss Jake terribly. We wish he was still with us, but I think he would have wanted us to keep playing and not stop on his account.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in a very similar position about 2 years ago. Something very similar happened, and I also had to go quiet for a while because there's just so much that was going on at that time regarding similar stuff. And it's crazy when it happens because you automatically, obviously, don't see it coming. And then on top of that, you still have these obligations to people, and people are like, oh, like, where'd you go? Like, what happened? Like, did you just stop making content? Do you not like it anymore? And you gotta have to be like, no, it's not that. Like, I'm just going through some stuff. And it feels like yeah.
Are you comfortable if we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% okay with it. Because one of the things that I do try to talk about on my channel is like mental health. And obviously it doesn't get as much views as like the romance stuff, but I don't care. It's important to me and I'm going to talk about it. So we can talk about it as much as you'd like to.
Well, yeah, like it's a very important topic. And right now, as of recording this, there's the whole Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing going on. Yes. And mental health is a big sort of topic in that. A lot of people are upset. Those who like believe Johnny Depp are looking at what Amber Heard's saying and saying this is like delegitimizing actual issues that people are suffering from.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to put an actual
content warning,
full content warning for this episode, but
my apologies. I did not intend
No, this isn't anyone's fault.
Okay.
But I remember when this happened, actually. 2 years ago, you said that you had a friend that you lost. Is that what happened?
Yes. So at the time, I was just out of high school. It was my freshman year. It was literally at the start of coronavirus. My friend, who had gone up north with two of my other best friends, had very similarly had taken her life while she was here over break. And what sucks is I was one of the last persons she had seen. She had come to my house that Monday. She was gone by that Friday. And I found out through a phone call. And I thought first that when you get that phone call, it's never like a great experience, but it's just like that dread sinks in. You're like, you're joking. Like you're joking. Like that would never happen sort of deal. And I was just distraught for the longest time. And it really did keep me from going anywhere as a person for a while. Because when you lose someone that's really close to you, when you lose like a best friend or something like that, it sinks in with you that holy shit, like there was nothing I could have done to change that outcome at all. And but you can't help thinking maybe I could have. Maybe if she had stayed the night, it would have been different. Sort of things like that. And it's when you're young, because I won't deny the fact that I'm young, so I don't have a lot of like life experiences like that. That was like the first big thing for me that suddenly made me realize like, oh shit, like this stuff can happen at any time. There's really nothing you can do to stop it. It's stuff like that kind of like breaks down your worldview. And yeah, like it was deeply uprooting and upsetting at the time. And I did discuss it when I finally came around to it, because I'm like, funny, haha, funny little D&D game, that's great and everything, but like that doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, like the game is more about spending time with friends and more about just forming these party bonds and stuff like that. And she had been in a campaign with my two other best friends, and it was just weird for them too, because after that, like their whole group fell apart, and it was just this weird intersection for me of being like, this doesn't matter anymore. And I mean, obviously I came back to it, obviously it still mattered, but when you play a game that's focused on friendship and like building bonds with people, then you lose someone like that, it like sort of disrupts how you think and how you play the game. It like just breaks down a lot of the ideas that you had in your head. I don't know if I'm explaining this right. It's really hard to explain unless you've had it happen to you, of just like that sudden fear of like, this could happen at any point. And it's sort of just a reminder that like you have to appreciate the people around you. At the end of the day, this funny little D&D game is not just like a D&D game. It's you spending time with like the most important people in your life, people that you're going to be friends with, people that you're going to fight and adventure with. And that like means something. That means something. So like don't take it for granted. Like appreciate that. It's weird. It really gave me a weird perspective on life after that, of like I had these wonderful, beautiful moments with her. And we would talk about D&D all the time. And after that, it just, now whenever I play it, like I think about her. Because we would talk about that all the time together. It was like one of the things that we really enjoyed, that really brought us together as friends. And it's weird. It really is weird.
Yeah, it's, mm-hmm. I mean, and it's tough because like you said, it is bonding with friends. Mm-hmm. If you lose those friends, then it can make it all feel like, well, what was the point of the bonding if it like wasn't going to last? But it's like, that's not, a healthy way to look at it. It's also not really correct. Like that's,
when you're in it though, that's what it feels like,
Yeah,
like when
it was those moments, mm-hmm. Like the thing is, with people who oftentimes are, like having suicidal ideation or thoughts, mm-hmm. they aren't doing it often because of some negative feelings towards their friends.
Of course
they
not.
Love their friends. Mm-hmm. They're super thankful for the friends. It is almost always internalized. There's almost always a sort of like feeling down about oneself, guilty about oneself that leads to this thing. And so it's like the last thing, and mm-hmm. there is the the arguments I've heard of like suicide is selfish. It's the ultimate selfish thing you can do because then you're leaving everyone behind. I've heard that. I'm not saying I necessarily. Yeah. I'm not saying I agree with that. But the thing is, when you're in that place, that is not how your brain is thinking at all.
It's not. It's really not. It really is a disease. Like, it's not something necessarily that's easy to just get over or even control until you get the proper help for it. It's incredibly crass to say that somebody is just, that they're selfish for doing it. That's obviously not. They've made themselves believe at some point that they're more a burden on the people around them than anything. And they don't go into that headspace intending to hurt anybody. And that's the cruel irony of it.
And they don't
mm-hmm.
want the people around them to necessarily be sad. Mm-hmm. Listen, okay, so I have never wanted to actually do anything to mm-hmm. myself like that would have taken me out of this world, okay? Mm-hmm. However, I do use medication for my ADHD. And because it is a stimulant that affects my dopamine, when I am off that medication, the withdrawal, when it hits, brings me to a point that makes me want to disappear. Makes me want to just not exist. Not necessarily do anything, but like I just sort of wish that I could not have identity and just like observe things and just not be a person. And like, that's a very weird thing to be at because we have our identities. We are people. But like a lot of, I think, people who are brought to that low place get that sort of thought in their mind. It's not necessarily that they want like, oh, I'm going to do this. That'll show the people who brought me down here. It's like, no, it's like, no, existence is pain to a meeseeks. It would be nice to just not exist. And I hope that like the people that I love and care about can go on without me. Meaning the people that leave us, we don't want them to leave. They shouldn't leave. Of course if you are thinking about this, please call an emergency hotline. I'm going to put the number up on the screen. Yes. Do not actually do this, but understand that people understand you. You are not alone. Like this is a very sadly common thing people go through. There are a lot of resources that can help you if you're in this place and you are not selfish. Do not feel guilty. Just don't feel bad about having to reach out for help.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter what's going on. Like, I think the lesson that I learned from this is like when something serious like that happens, you take time to like cope. You take time to think about it. You take time to just live in that moment. You have to really embrace what you're feeling at that point, because if you just keep shoving it back, it's going to get worse. For instance, when that happened, it was the week before I went back to college. I was so numb, and I was like, all my friends at that point were basically skipping the entire semester because of what had happened. And in my head, I was like, I can't do that. I can't afford to like wait, because I'd already paid for my tuition at that point. Like I'd already paid the dorm, all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, there's no point at this point, because I know they're not going to give it back to me. And like, I'm going to disappoint my parents if I don't go forward and I don't complete this. So instead of taking time to actually heal from what happened, I just went right back to school. And this was the Friday right before Monday classes. So I got up, went back to class, and I just tried to sit numb through all of it. You don't do that. When something like that happens, you take time. You have to. You gotta get help. Trust me, you're gonna want it. There is a ton of resources out there. There's just anonymous online resources that you can use if you don't like going in person. There's telehealth. There's Talkspace. It's a wonderful application where you can talk to a therapist online, and it's fantastic. And I've never talked to someone that wasn't very personable and cared about what you had to say. So there's ways you can still take care of yourself, even if you're not doing well, if you're not comfortable, if it seems hard to like do it in the moment. There are ways that you can be met at your comfort level, and I beg you to seek those out if you are in a place like that. I beg you. Do not discount this, because when you're in that place, I've been there, and you can hear people telling you that, and you're like, yeah, but you don't know. It's like, no, actually, though, we do. Actually, we do, so be quiet, shut up.
Believe it or not. Like, my circumstances aren't your circumstances. There might be external factors that are different, right? My brain chemistry is probably going to be different, but it's not that different. We're all still humans. We all can still be brought to a place where we have those dark sort of feelings and thoughts. Of course. Do not give in to that. Even if that is what you feel most, your brain is lying to you. Your brain's a fucking liar sometimes. Please try to trust other people when they say to seek help and to not give in, not to, if it means that you have to just lay in bed all day, that's better than taking an action that is going to do something very, very bad. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, yes. Yeah. So some heavy topics today. I'm probably going to name this episode like mental health with FlyingFoxGirl.
Good. Honestly, good. Because I've always wanted to do a lot more stuff about mental health, because an impression I've gotten from this community is that there's a lot of people that do need help. I mean, the stereotype is sort of, oh my God, 1 second. There is a guy blowing leaves outside my window. It's pissing me off.
I can hear it a little.
He is annoying the shit out of me. Okay, anyways. I think the impression that people get with D&D people is that they're not the most sociable, that they're a bit awkward, because D&D has always been considered like a special interest or something on the side. So whether or not that's true, there is definitely people in this community who definitely use D&D as escape. I mean, it's a fantasy game. Of course there's going to be people that use it as an escape. And there's people that sort of just try and fade into the game, and they don't realize it, but they're kind of using the game to deal with parts of themselves that they're not always the most comfortable with. That's why I always see these jokes on TikTok of like giving my characters like my own personal flaws without realizing, haha, and I'm like, that's really funny, but like, actually maybe focus on the, like, maybe actually focus on those issues if you feel like you have them, because like at the end of the day, if this is a way that you can identify like how you're feeling about things, if this is a place that you feel safe and comfortable and acknowledged and just feel more yourself, then that's a good way to start addressing said issues. Like if D&D is the vehicle for you and your mental health, in which you start to realize that maybe you need help with some of the problems that you have, like let's talk about that. Because that's important. There's a lot of people in the community that I feel like need that. And sure, it's more of a smaller issue compared to like what other things are going on in the game. But ultimately, I do try to make more content that's geared towards that. And a lot of time, like when I make those videos, they get shafted. They don't get that many views, which is fine. I understand that people want to see like the same stuff from me over and over again. But I would like to talk about that when it comes up. I want people to know that they're being seen and acknowledged, and they like what they're feeling is understood, because it can be a lot. It can be a lot.
The thing is, at the end of the day, D&D is a game with people and of people.
Yeah.
By people, for the people.
Yeah, for the people.
It is people are what make the game good, not the numbers, not the lore. That stuff's fun. That stuff is what rounds it out. But you can't play D&D without actual human beings to play with. And sometimes if you're just like, hey, let's say you're neurotypical and you got your life together and you just want to play a game and have fun.
That's
and
cool.
Suddenly there are players in your game that are like exploring like a therapist session, some of their personal flaws.
Mental illness. Yeah.
Hey, I get it. That's not necessarily what you signed up for. Too bad.
Of course.
I'm going to tell you right now, you're signing up for it. If you're playing D&D, you are signing up for the game, but also the possibility that somebody in your group has some sort of issue that they're going to work out through a character. And that's be okay with it. You got to be okay with that, because it's going to happen. And if you cannot tolerate that, then you need to like go into a campaign session 0 and let everybody know, hey,
exactly,
none of these characters can be actual reflections of who we are. Do not act through your character as yourself. We are playing a part and writing a story together, and that's all we're doing. If that's the kind of game you want to play, right?
Then specify that.
You have to be upfront about it, because you can't blame other people who are playing the game not knowing that they were going to explore those issues, and then looks like I explored this deep-seated issue of my personality without realizing it. Like, they're not going to say that at session 0, so you need to know during session 0 whether or not you could put up with it. And if you can't, then don't join that game.
And it's okay to set boundaries too. Like that's the great thing about session 0. You get to talk about the things that you're comfortable with and the expectations that you get out of the campaign. You are allowed to explore a campaign that is just fun, wholesome adventuring where you figure things out and you beat it at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, when you have character arcs, when you get into games that are a little more deep into the role play, you are eventually probably going to touch on things like that. So you have to be fully aware of that going in. Because nobody wants to be uncomfortable at the table. That's totally okay. But understand, like, if you have someone at the table that is going through something like that, like, just support them, be there, give them their space. Because even at the end of the day, if you're playing with them and that person's your friend, whether they're doing it through a character or not, you should be there to support them. You don't have to necessarily, go out of your way to, like, freaking solve all their issues, anything like that. But just give them their time, give them their space, be there for them. That's one thing.
And for the people that are in games with groups of people that you don't necessarily know very intimately, and maybe you're like, well, I just wanted to do dungeon crawls. I didn't necessarily look, that's totally cool. But just be aware that sometimes you're going to have people that want to explore those things. And if you're going to join the game,
that doesn't make them evil for wanting it.
Yeah, their D&D isn't wrong or bad. Neither is yours.
It's just different from yours.
But you're gonna they're not gonna necessarily know that from the outset. You can make the determination from the outset. And if it is something that you're willing to kind of let them explore and still have your dungeon crawls and the stuff that you want to do, just be patient with people. Let them explore those things. Understand and communicate. Good Lord. Communicate that if you're going to do something that might touch or sort of like rub up against that very issue that the other player is exploring with this character, maybe send a message, say, hey, I just want to let you know that my character is being rude or doing this thing, not me. I'm cool. Yes. I just want to let you know that it is my character doing this. I hope that's all right. If you want me to stop, I will stop. You know,
that's so important. That is so important.
God, communication can nip so many issues right in the bud if you could just reach out to people and just let them know it's the character, not you. And like, you're willing to back off or compromise if it's making someone uncomfy.
Oh gosh, can we talk about something else that has to do with boundaries regarding communication in session 0? Because I've been dying to say this one for a hot minute.
Say it.
Okay. Here's the thing. My content is all like, ooh, they're kissing. Oh, look, they're in love. Aw, who gives a shit?
I imagined you taking like shit? 2 dolls and be like, no kiss, no kiss.
Ooh, kiss. I'm like, that shit can make people so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So uncomfortable. If you're doing that, tell people session 0. Like, have a conversation with it. To be like, hey, there might be the possibility of me wanting to romance like an NPC or something like that. Have a freaking discussion, because not everybody at your table loves that. Not everybody at your table wants to see that. Not everybody at your table wants to even play that or bear witness to it. It's an uncomfortable situation.
That is like so important. We should talk a little more about that, because that is part of your brand.
Yes, and it's something I've been dying to say for a hot minute. Like, because I'm just like, ooh, we need to talk about this. This is important.
And there's a difference too. Like, so let's start with the idea of just romance in a game. Hey, guess what? Yes. You're simulating life in a way with D&D. Romance exists. People are married. People have children. So clearly love is a thing. You can't not have any sort of love unless you want to do real grimdark. I guess you could do that. But love is a thing. And you know what? It is okay for some players to want to explore that aspect of life in the game. Exactly. But it gets a little bit muddy because a lot of people...
Don't force it on people. Don't force
it on people. Some people identify way too strongly with their character and then get too invested in the thing. And it's like, oh, back off. Okay, we're playing with dolls. We're not, that's essentially what we're doing. We're these are action figures, okay?
We're sitting on the floor and we're just playing with our Monster High dolls. Also, they're dropping a new Monster High doll soon. I just wanted to mention that because Tori loves them.
For you Monster High fans out there.
Yeah.
So here's a big thing. And I've heard Brennan Lee Mulligan talk about this because he has to roleplay this a lot. He says that in his games, he as DM has no problem with players romancing NPCs and vice versa.
Yes.
Because the DM plays everybody. They are not only the romanceable NPC, but they're the rival, they're the bad guys, they're everybody. So they get to kind of just be, they're still neutral in that sense. And they have to romance not just the person that maybe like someone who it doesn't know them might be like, is there something going on there? But they also got to romance like the person that's like their best friend who's like not of the sex that they are like attracted to, and they have to like role play romance with them too. So like it's a different situation when it's an NPC and player. And I feel that in most games, and you can tell me your opinion on this, like if you think that this is appropriate, but I feel like that should be allowed in most games to an extent that is comfortable for both the DM and players.
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. I think it's a little muddier when you start going into PC stuff, because that's where I have issues.
Yeah.
That's where I have issues with it. But NPCs, by and large, that is how I think about it. Because when I'm a DM, I run a game every like Friday, and my game is, funnily enough, despite the content I make, not at all romance focused. I don't care to put it in. I don't think it's the most interesting part of D&D. If my players want to pursue it, that's great. That's good for them, and they do. But that's not what I find interesting as a DM. But I also, when I am a part of those NPC PC romances, I think about the fact that like, I'm also playing that guy's brother or his best friend, or like exactly how you explained it, of I'm not just playing that NPC, like I'm playing everybody, people that like them, people that don't. I am the entirety of the game in a way. I'm the world. I'm all the little people walking around on the little me-verse.
It's like I might be playing the NPC that you're romancing, but I also get to play the villain that kills them and takes them away from you.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both here.
Yeah, so there's less. It's less weird in my personal opinion.
You're not as invested in your NPCs when you're a DM. You can let go of them much more easily. But when you're a player, like you mentioned, because that was the next point, that is so much trickier. And people out there, if you're gonna do player and player romance, here's some pointers that I would like to give to you. First of all, if you are in a relationship in real life, you need to clear this with that person. If they are not comfortable with you doing that, then probably just don't. It's just going to cause headaches. It's not worth it. The real relationship is going to be way better for you than the fucking fake one 9 times out of 10.
It's not worth sacrificing.
It's not worth any sacrifice. It's not worth any
real relationship. Don't.
So that's first thing you should clear. If you're single or your partner's okay with it, then cool. Now you need to clear it ahead of time with the other player. DM them. Hey, I think it might be cool if this character I play and the character you play could roleplay a romance. Are you okay with that? And also, do you have any boundaries and things that, are like no-goes for you? Like, if you wanted to roleplay that, how would you want to do that? Make a battle plan, or I guess a romance plan. Like,
and people, I always hear this lame ass excuse of like metagaming. I'm like, I don't care. It makes everybody more comfortable. Metagaming is good when it leads to a healthy relationship with other players and your DM. I don't care.
Metagaming is for like mechanical stuff and like plot stuff, but player versus player and player shit, that should be talked about ahead of time. That is, you guys are writing a collaborative story, so collaborate.
Exactly. Like, just talk about it. Oh my god. Just talk.
Like my friend Tabaxi Cafe, who I've had on the podcast, I play with in a Monday game DM'd by Captain Cheeky called Antumbra Echoes the Eclipse, where she plays a Tabaxi paladin turned barbarian named Silas. And Silas has entered into a player and player romance with another character, Comet. So the two gay dads, and Comet is played by Vitamin Dieter, but Tabaxi Cafe contacted Dieter beforehand and was like, hey, I think this would be super cute. Are you cool with that? And Dieter said, cool. Guess what? Tabby has a partner. They are role-playing it for the story and for the enjoyment of just role-playing that because it's cute seeing these two little action figures kiss. I
think they kiss.
Exactly. That is a way that you can accomplish this in a respectful thing, and it's cute. And everyone kind of understands, like, if it ever were to get a little steamier than that, fade to black, done.
Fade to black, instantly. None of that stuff should be being discussed at all, personally.
Yeah. That is, unless you're playing with a bunch of freaks who all like that as well as you, then, you can do that. But
I know for a fact there's probably a campaign out there that has done that, and I'm just like,
I know people who like to go into more detail, and I'm not really about it, personally.
At that point, no. The DM just fades and the DM's playing with 2 monster highs. That's all I see. That's if you guys are doing that, that's it.
I'm on the Ace and Aero spectrums. So like for me, I can go a whole game without any of that stuff and be totally happy and fine.
And be cool with it.
But like as a DM, there are some people who want to be able to like romance NPCs and stuff. So I've got to like, okay, all right. So how am I going to do this? We're going to do a lot of different persuasion checks throughout the game and see how well this goes. But like the other thing though, so I mentioned Tabaxi Cafe as like, this is a great way. Well, guess what? I'm now running a Curse of Strahd game. And in this game is a lot of my friends from Antumbra, but also my girlfriend who is playing. And she was approached by Tabaxi Cafe in the DMs.
Tabaxi is stealing everyone's
girlfriend. She wants to romance like a character like every game.
Yeah.
And I'm like basically approached me like, would you be okay with my character and her character being two gay moms. Mm-hmm. Can we do that? And I was like, yeah.
Sure. That's sweet.
Because, like, I understand that is something that people like to explore. I don't, it doesn't, I'm not worried in real life about what's going on here. However, I understand that that's not the way everybody works. I understand that sometimes people just aren't comfy with it. They're just not okay with it. And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you need to bring it up, though, at your session 0. Like, you have to be like, hey, are we okay with romance on the table for this campaign? If we're not, then we're not doing it. Like, that should be the baseline.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah.
Sorry, I blabbed a lot about it, but that's such an important thing to talk about because a lot of like CritCrab's horror stories are that shit going wrong.
I recently went on to CritCrab's page, and bless him, he is the funniest motherfucker. He is so sweet too. Like the few times I've been in call with him, I've always thought this guy is awesome. Like I love CritCrab. But I was scrolling through, and a lot of his horror stories are about these romance players and the creepy things they do in game. And I'm like, that's why we need to have a discussion about this. This is why it needs to become more commonplace knowledge that you should have a discussion at your session 0. And don't do those things if people aren't comfortable with it. I feel like there's common sense about what you should and shouldn't be doing. But then again, I could say that, but my common sense is probably different from some other weirdos' common sense in a completely different place.
I can tell you what feels like common sense really isn't because I discovered I had a free trial to this website that had a bunch of PDFs. And I was downloading Ravenloft material from like older editions because I was like deep in the lore and I'm like, I'm going to make the perfect Curse of Strahd game. Yes. So I was like downloading all this stuff. I came across a very disheartening document that I'm so sad to know exists. And it is, I don't know the precise title, but basically it's like Sex in D&D.
No.
Yeah. It is a complete mechanical system about how to run sexual encounters in Dungeons and Dragons. It is the most disgusting thing I've ever bore witness to.
No.
And when you say, oh, I think it's common sense, people know, no, it is not. Trust me, after looking at this, it is not. It is gross. For those fucking freaks out there that want to look it up, you can. Don't say I didn't warn you. It is fucking sad, and it makes me lose faith in this world.
I want to say one thing, now that you bring it up. I have had players in the past who have had fade to black interactions. And that's cool and everything, but we turn it into a total joke. Like, a complete total joke. The most I think I've ever done regarding anything close to that nature is a roll for pregnancy because one of the characters, was a woman at the time. And it was a man. I was just like, pregnancy roll, that's it, end it. Like, consequence for your actions, move on. Like, fuck that. Other than that, fuck no. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know about it. Don't tell me. I don't care. I don't want to. I don't fucking know.
Like we said, it is something that you as a group of friends need to be okay with from the outset.
Talk about it and keep it away from me. Like, keep it 17 feet away from me. No. Yeah. Unless you're making the fattest joke of it, I don't want to hear a word. Don't talk to me. No.
Yeah. There's a scene, I don't know if you've seen that Community episode about Dungeons and Dragons where what's her name? The one girl is playing Hector the Well-Endowed, and they have to get these Pegasi to fight the dragon, but the elf maiden won't let them won't do business with them unless somebody sleeps with her. So she they do a fade to, not a fade to black, but a fade to set sentimental music as she's visibly describing what she does to the elf maid. And Troy is pulling out a notepad and taking notes, and other people are reacting ugh.
That is funny to me. When you're obviously, when the intent is not at all to enjoy the scene, when there's no weird fucking atmosphere there of like that player is like fucking like enjoying it. Like when it's funny and it's played for laughs, I'm a little more okay with it because my table generally finds that shit funny, so they laugh at it. But oh my god, I cannot imagine having a player there that actually, my skin crawls thinking about that.
Yeah. CritCrab is a great resource to see a trove of players like that. It's disgusting. But let's switch. Bad. Let's switch to. I think we're even after the little break that we took because Zoom sucked. I think we're kind of reaching the end-ish of the episode. What I would like to do is ask you to share a story from one of your games, if you could. So, if you'd like to share like a interesting or funny or just like cool story from one of your games, you've got the floor.
All right. I have one that I think is a wee bit humorous, one might say. So I do run my own game. I run a game called Kingsley, and it used to be streamed on Twitch, but then we're all little socially awkward babies, so we're like, okay, let's just keep this between us, and it'll be more comfortable. We won't feel like people are watching us 24/7, that sort of stuff. So we moved back to just doing it on Discord. And Kingsley is basically, in short, a game where they're supposed to get a bunch of ingredients to cure a plague, and like that's the heart of it. And the whole game is them going to different islands to find said ingredients. Well, they were on one island, Ellipsia, and there was murder that was going on, and very classic like storybook murder. There was people that were suspects, and one of the suspects was one of the players' brothers. Well, they needed to figure out or like exonerate him essentially so that they could move on and get him out of there, that sort of thing. And one of my players, Beridian, who's played by my boyfriend, goes up to the penthouse where the murder took place, and there's the officer there. His name is Jade. And Beridian is a police officer from Kingsley, from the original island that has a plague. So he goes up, but he's also like, okay, I can't tell them the truth. Because what had already happened was they broke out the brother from the police. So they're like, we can't tell him that we broke him out and that we're just trying to get the police off his ass, so I have to lie to him, that sort of thing. And Beridian's like trying to ask questions about the murder, trying to get enough details for them to be able to help pitch. And the officer, Captain Jade, is essentially like, how do you know all this? Like, you're giving me a lot of facts about this man's life that, like, I didn't know, this sort of stuff. And Beridian, my boyfriend, bless his heart, is a horrible liar. A absolutely horrible liar in real life. Just horrible. And he's like, well, Pitch actually committed a genocide in Kingsley, and we're trying to get him. And he's like, he was only wanted for murder at the time. So he's like, what? He's like, he committed a genocide. And another thing is there's like a dragon. Like, Kingsley's basically on fire. There's like 50 things going on over there at any given point. And he's like, he just realizes like he's in deep, so he just keeps going. And he's like, yeah, and he summoned a green dragon and cultists that speak Infernal, and the dragon also speaks Infernal, and the dragon is killing everyone. And the officer's just like, what are you talking about? And he was sinking so fast, right? Like, he was just sinking. So I, as the DM, I'm trying to be like sympathetic. So I throw in another NPC, hoping like, okay, I'll give him something to help him dig his way back out of the hole that he's made. Basically, I just threw in a woman that was one of the suspects. It was like classic, like black and white, like mystery type stuff. It was just a woman that had actually been having an affair with the man of the woman who was killed. All this BS. But she was pregnant. Not heavily, like she just claimed she was pregnant. She didn't look at it all. So she comes in and she's like crying dramatically and stuff like that. And she's like, officer, please, I want like release me, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And Beridian, love him to death, love him so much, goes over to her and like I gave him this distraction thinking that he'd like steer the conversation that way instead so he could leave. He goes over to her and he's like, this woman is about to give birth right now. I have to leave. So didn't go that way at all. Absolutely awful
Yeah, he committed a genocide, summoned a dragon, cultist. They speak Infernal. He speaks Infernal. Officer. She's about to give birth. I gotta go.
I gotta leave. So he's a warforged. So essentially they like stunned him and shut him off and like dragged him outside type of stuff. But ever since then, like a joke in my group has just been that now the dragon now speaks Infernal, and then there's cultists and Pitch killed everyone. So that's just one of the ongoing little fun campaign jokes that my players like to constantly prod at. So yep, that's the story of Viridian.
That's great. I also love that Viridian and Jade, both of their names are colors of green. Yeah. And he said that a green dragon was, that's kind of interesting.
That campaign is chocked full of like metaphors and like bullshit. I write my shit like I'm writing a novel, but they are hilarious. My group is just a bunch of idiots who just run around setting things on fire, and I love them to death. They're my favorite. But yeah, that is Kingsley in a nutshell.
Hell yeah. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me.
Could you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes. So, again, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, and YouTube, all under FlyingFoxGirl. Yeah, that's basically it. I've done a big job of consolidating my taglines nowadays. So just Flying Fox Girl on basically everything, even Twitter. So, yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks for being on.